This story is titled, Coworker kept taking credit for my work, so I let her present my brilliant idea to the CEO. It was actually complete nonsense. My name is Emily, 28F, and until 6 months ago, I was a marketing specialist at one of Chicago's most prestigious advertising firms, Thompson & Associates. I had everything going for me: a corner desk with a view of Lake Michigan, a steady stream of challenging projects, and a reputation for being the go-to person for innovative campaign ideas. I loved my job, had a great relationship with most of my colleagues, and genuinely looked forward to coming to work each morning. That all changed when Madison, 31F, transferred to our department from the Denver office. From day one, she carried herself with an air of superiority that made my skin crawl. With her perfectly styled blonde hair, designer suits, and an MBA from Northwestern, she quickly became our department head Jack's, 45M, favorite. At first, I tried to be welcoming, even invited her to lunch with my work friends Rachel, 27F, and Tom, 29M, who'd been my closest allies since I started at the company 3 years ago. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. During that first lunch, Madison barely acknowledged Rachel or Tom, instead peppering me with questions about my current projects and my relationship with senior management. She seemed particularly interested in my upcoming presentation on revolutionizing our approach to social media marketing for luxury brands. I was proud of that proposal. I'd spent months researching and developing innovative strategies that could potentially transform how our clients connected with younger demographics. The dynamic in our office shifted subtly at first. Madison would hover near my desk, casually asking about my methodologies and insights. She'd schedule brainstorming sessions, where she'd take copious notes while I explained my ideas. I didn't mind sharing after all. Collaboration was supposedly one of our company's core values. But then, I started noticing small changes in our team meetings. Madison would bring up concepts that were eerily similar to ones I discussed with her privately, presenting them as her own groundbreaking insights. Jack would beam at her, praising her innovative thinking, while I sat there, feeling my blood pressure rise. Rachel noticed it too. She'd shoot me concerned glances across the conference room table whenever Madison would smoothly take credit for another one of my ideas. Even Tom, who typically avoided office politics like the plague, pulled me aside one day to ask if I was okay with how things were playing out. But I kept telling myself that as long as the work was good and benefiting the company, I shouldn't make waves. Maybe I was just being oversensitive. Besides, I had always believed that my work would speak for itself. That philosophy came crashing down the day Madison was promoted to senior marketing strategist, a position I had been eyeing for months. Jack announced it during our monthly department meeting, praising her fresh perspectives and original thinking. I sat there, gripping my pen so hard it nearly snapped, as Madison gave a gracious acceptance speech about how excited she was to continue bringing innovative ideas to the team. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake, replaying every interaction, every stolen idea, every fake smile Madison had given me, while systematically building her career on my creativity. Something had to change. And as I stared at my ceiling at 3 a.m., an idea began to take shape, one that would either save my career or spectacularly backfire. But at that point, I was ready to risk it all. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, my mind crystal clear despite my sleepless night. The cleaning crew was still vacuuming as I settled into my desk, pulled out my notebook, and began drafting what would become my masterpiece of malicious compliance. I knew Madison's habits by now. She was always looking for the next big idea to steal, especially with the upcoming quarterly review where she'd be presenting directly to our CEO, Michael, 52M, for the first time as senior marketing strategist. Our CEO was known for his sharp business acumen and zero tolerance for mediocrity. He'd built Thompson & Associates from a small local agency into a regional powerhouse, and he took personal interest in reviewing major campaign proposals. Madison had been bragging about her upcoming presentation for weeks, making sure everyone knew she'd be showcasing her revolutionary new marketing approach. To Michael himself, I spent the next 2 weeks crafting the perfect bait. During lunch breaks, I deliberately leave my notebook open on my desk, filled with increasingly outlandish marketing concepts. I made sure to pepper my notes with just enough industry jargon to make them sound plausible to someone like Madison, who relied more on buzzwords than actual marketing experience. I'd catch her lingering near my desk when she thought I wasn't looking, her eyes scanning my deliberately messy handwriting. The innovative strategy I created was a beautiful disaster, a marketing approach that proposed targeting luxury brand consumers through oddly specific channels, like elevator music playlists and fortune cookie messages. I included elaborate charts showing how synchronized toothbrushing times could be used to deliver targeted ads, and how moon phases could influence buying patterns of high-end watches. It was complete nonsense, but I dressed it up in sophisticated-looking data and impressive-sounding terminology. Rachel caught on to what I was doing when she spotted one of my fake charts. She nearly choked on her coffee trying to hold back laughter as she read about the correlation between customer sock color preferences and luxury car purchases. But she understood the game I was playing and helped by occasionally mentioning these ridiculous concepts in casual conversation when Madison was within earshot. Just as I predicted, Madison began dropping elements of my fabricated strategy into her conversations with Jack. She casually mentioned the emerging trends in chronological marketing optimization, a completely made-up term I'd invented, or discussed the untapped potential of elevator-based consumer engagement. Jack, who trusted Madison implicitly by this point, nodded along, clearly not wanting to admit he didn't understand these supposedly cutting-edge concepts. The night before the big presentation, I was one of the last to leave the office. As I packed up my things, I saw Madison still at her desk, furiously incorporating my latest breakthrough insights into her PowerPoint presentation. She looked nervous. This was her first chance to present directly to the CEO, and she wanted it to be perfect. She barely acknowledged me as I walked past, too absorbed in rehearsing her explanation of the lunar phase purchasing matrix I'd invented. I slept soundly that night for the first time in weeks. The trap was set, and Madison had taken the bait hook, line, and sinker. Tomorrow would either be the most satisfying day of my career or the beginning of its end. Either way, I was ready to see my plan through to its conclusion. The morning of the presentation arrived with an electric tension in the air. I got to work early again, wanting to witness every moment of what was about to unfold. The conference room slowly filled with senior management, including representatives from other departments who'd been invited to witness Madison's supposedly groundbreaking presentation. I spotted Olivia, 49F, our HR director, settling into a seat near the back, along with David, 55M, our CFO, who rarely attended departmental presentations but had been specifically invited by Jack to see Madison's innovative approach. Madison strode in wearing her most expensive power suit, projecting confidence despite the slight tremor in her hands as she set up her laptop. Jack sat at the front, practically bouncing with anticipation to show off his protege to the executive team. Rachel and Tom found seats next to me, and I could feel Rachel's leg nervously bouncing under the table. She kept shooting me concerned glances, probably wondering if I'd thought this through completely. The room fell silent as Michael entered. Our CEO had a commanding presence that demanded attention without effort. He took his seat at the head of the table, pulled out his notepad, he was old school, preferred handwritten notes to tablets, and nodded for Madison to begin. I noticed a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead as she clicked to her first slide. What followed was 45 minutes of the most absurd marketing presentation ever given at Thompson & Associates. Madison confidently explained my fabricated concepts with the conviction of someone who truly believed they were revolutionary. She detailed the circadian rhythm marketing matrix, complete with graphs showing how consumers' shopping habits correlated with their breakfast choices. She enthusiastically presented the sock color consumer behavior model, with elaborate pie charts and trend analysis. The reactions around the room were a study in controlled professional behavior. David, our CFO, maintained an impressively neutral expression, though his eyebrows kept inching higher with each increasingly outlandish claim. Olivia from HR was rapidly taking notes, her face a mask of confusion. A few junior executives were exchanging puzzled glances, while others were typing furiously on their phones, probably trying to look up some of the made-up terms Madison was using. The most fascinating reaction was Michael's. Our CEO sat completely still, his face unreadable as Madison explained how synchronizing marketing messages with elevator music could increase luxury purchase intent by an alleged 47%. His only movement was the steady scratching of his pen across his notepad. Jack, still beaming proudly at first, gradually began to look less certain as the presentation progressed, and the room's atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Tom had to fake a coughing fit to cover up his reaction when Madison reached the slide about the lunar phase purchase correlation, which suggested that consumers were 82% more likely to buy luxury watches during a waxing gibbous moon. Rachel had her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white, and she was biting her lip hard enough to leave marks. As Madison concluded her presentation with a flourish, revealing her final slide about implementing these strategies across all our major accounts, the silence in the room was deafening. She stood there, slightly breathless, clearly expecting the usual round of appreciative applause that followed most presentations. Instead, there was only the soft hum of the air conditioning and the muffled sound of traffic from the street below. Michael slowly closed his notepad, his expression still unreadable, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his response. Michael stood up slowly, deliberately straightening his tie. The look he gave Madison made the room temperature seem to drop 10 degrees. In his 30 years of building this company, he developed a reputation for being direct but fair. His voice was calm, but carried an edge that made everyone sit up straighter. He began by systematically dismantling every aspect of Madison's presentation. He pointed out that not only were her proposed strategies completely disconnected from reality, but they also demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of basic marketing principles. He questioned the source of her data, the methodology behind her conclusions, and the basic logic of correlating sock colors with luxury car purchases. With each point, Madison's confident demeanor crumbled a little more. Jack, who had been Madison's biggest champion, looked like he was trying to sink through the floor. His face had gone from proud to confused to mortified in the span of minutes. I could see him mentally reviewing all the times he praised Madison's innovative thinking in department meetings, realizing he'd never actually scrutinized the substance behind her flashy presentations. Madison attempted to defend her ideas, but each explanation only dug her deeper. She started stumbling over her words, contradicting herself as she tried to explain the science behind the circadian rhythm marketing matrix. Her carefully maintained composure was cracking, and beneath it, everyone could see she had no real understanding of the concepts she was presenting. The situation took an unexpected turn when Michael asked Madison to explain exactly how she developed these theories. She glanced nervously in my direction, the first time she'd looked at me since the presentation began. I maintained a carefully neutral expression, but inside, my heart was racing. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, but I hadn't anticipated how intense it would feel. Instead of admitting the truth, Madison doubled down. She claimed she'd spent months researching these revolutionary concepts, even suggesting she consulted with unnamed experts in the field. As she spoke, I could see Olivia from HR making careful notes, her expression growing increasingly concerned. David, our CFO, had stopped even pretending to hide his skepticism and was openly shaking his head. The moment that sealed Madison's fate came when Michael pulled out his phone and, right there in the conference room, tried to look up several of the key terms and experts she'd cited. The silence that followed his searches was devastating. Even the most junior person in the room could figure out what his lack of results meant. These concepts didn't exist anywhere except in Madison's presentation. Rachel, still sitting beside me, had her hand pressed against her mouth, watching the scene unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Tom had stopped pretending to look at his laptop and was staring openly, along with everyone else in the room. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and we were all waiting to see how this professional disaster would end. Michael dismissed the meeting with a terse request for Madison and Jack to join him in his office immediately. As everyone filed out of the conference room, the whispers began. Groups of executives huddled in corners, discussing what they'd just witnessed. I caught fragments of conversations about unprecedented and complete embarrassment as I made my way back to my desk. The next few hours were surreal. Madison and Jack remained in Michael's office with the blinds drawn. Olivia from HR was called in after about 30 minutes, her expression grim as she hurried past our department. The tension in the office was unbearable. Everyone was trying to work while simultaneously watching the CEO's door, waiting for the fallout. Rachel brought me a coffee and perched on the edge of my desk, her voice barely above a whisper as she expressed her disbelief at what had happened. Tom kept walking past, pretending to go to the printer while actually trying to gather any snippets of information about what was happening behind those closed doors. Other colleagues were less subtle, openly speculating about Madison's future at the company. Around lunchtime, the door finally opened. Madison emerged first, her face pale and mascara slightly smudged. Without making eye contact with anyone, she went straight to her desk and began gathering her personal items into a cardboard box that Olivia had quietly provided. The usual office chatter had completely ceased, replaced by the sound of Madison's heels clicking on the floor, and the rustle of her belongings being packed away. Jack came out next, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. He went straight to his office and closed the door, the blinds rattling with the force of it. Through the glass walls of our office, we could see other department heads being summoned one by one to Michael's office, each returning with serious expressions and immediately calling their own team meetings. The most surprising moment came when Michael's assistant, Linda, 34F, appeared at my desk. Her expression was carefully neutral as she informed me that the CEO wanted to see me. As I stood up, I could feel every eye in the office on me. Rachel squeezed my arm as I passed, and I heard the whisper start up again behind me. Walking to Michael's office felt like the longest journey of my life. I had anticipated many possible outcomes when I set my plan in motion, but suddenly facing the reality of being called into the CEO's office made my heart race. The evidence of Madison's deception was clear, but I wasn't sure how my role in orchestrating her downfall would be received. As I approached Michael's office, I saw Olivia waiting outside, reviewing a thick folder of documents. She gave me an unreadable look as I passed. The door to Michael's office stood open, and I could see him standing at his window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. The morning's events had set something significant in motion, and I was about to find out exactly what that meant for my future at Thompson and Associates. Michael gestured for me to take a seat without turning from the window. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before he finally spoke. His voice was measured as he described how he'd been watching our department closely over the past months. Apparently, the sudden improvement in Madison's work had caught his attention long before today's presentation disaster. He turned to face me, picking up a familiar-looking notebook from his desk, my notebook, the one I'd deliberately left out for Madison to see. My stomach dropped as he began flipping through the pages, pointing out specific examples of my fabricated marketing concepts. But instead of anger, I detected something else in his voice: amusement, mixed with what almost sounded like admiration. Michael revealed that he'd asked Linda to keep tabs on Madison's activities after noticing inconsistencies in her work patterns. Linda had observed Madison hovering around my desk, taking photos of my notes with her phone, and quickly incorporating my ideas into her own presentations. The CEO had been building a case, waiting to see how far Madison would go. What I hadn't known was that Michael had also been monitoring my real work, the actual marketing strategies I'd developed before Madison's arrival, the successful campaigns I'd launched, and the genuine innovations I'd brought to our clients. He pulled out another folder, this one filled with my legitimate proposals and campaign results from the past 3 years. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Michael admitted that my elaborate scheme to expose Madison had demonstrated not just creativity, but also a deep understanding of human psychology and market manipulation skills highly valued in our industry, when used ethically. He explained that while he didn't entirely approve of my methods, he understood why I'd chosen this path after having my work repeatedly stolen. Then came the real shock. Michael revealed that this morning's presentation wasn't just about Madison, it was an opportunity to assess several people's judgment and integrity. Jack had failed by promoting style over substance and not verifying Madison's claims. Madison had failed spectacularly by stealing and presenting work she didn't understand. But I had demonstrated both intelligence and strategic thinking, even if my approach had been unorthodox. As I sat there, trying to process everything, Michael dropped another bombshell. The senior marketing strategist position was again available, but he had something else in mind. He wanted to create a new role, director of innovation strategy, someone who could both generate creative solutions and identify genuine talent within the company. He believed my experience with Madison had given me unique insight into how to foster real innovation while preventing the kind of toxic behavior that had almost damaged our company's reputation. The next few days were a whirlwind of changes. After accepting Michael's offer, I found myself in a newly configured office on the executive floor. The promotion came with a substantial raise, and a level of responsibility that both excited and terrified me. My first task would be restructuring our department's creative process to prevent future incidents like the Madison situation. News of what had happened spread through the company like wildfire, though not entirely accurately. The official story was that Madison had resigned to pursue other opportunities, but the whispers around the water cooler told a different tale. Some people claimed she'd had a complete breakdown in Michael's office. Others swore they'd seen her crying in the parking garage. I chose not to correct any of the rumors, focusing instead on my new role. Jack's position had also changed. While he wasn't fired, he was reassigned to head our smallest division, managing local accounts. He avoided eye contact whenever we passed in the hallways, his previous confidence replaced by a wary humility. I heard through the grapevine that he was required to attend weekly mentoring sessions with Michael, learning how to properly evaluate talent and verify work quality. Rachel and Tom were thrilled about my promotion, though it meant we wouldn't be working as closely anymore. Rachel had been promoted to my old position, proving that Michael had indeed been paying attention to everyone's actual contributions. Tom had taken on additional responsibilities in client relations, where his natural ability to avoid drama proved invaluable. The most significant change came in how people approached their work. Word had gotten out that Michael was personally involved in reviewing major proposals, and suddenly everyone was double-checking their sources and making sure they could explain their strategies in detail. The era of flashy presentations without substance was over. I spent my first week meeting with every member of the creative team individually, listening to their ideas and frustrations. Many of them had stories similar to mine, good ideas buried under office politics or stolen by more aggressive colleagues. It became clear that Madison hadn't been the cause of our problems, just a symptom of a culture that needed to change. 3 months into my new role, I was sitting in what used to be Madison's corner office, reviewing the latest batch of campaign proposals when an email notification popped up on my screen. It was from a rival agency in Boston, asking for a reference for Madison. I leaned back in my chair, thinking about how different things were now compared to just a few months ago. My new position had given me a unique perspective on the company. I'd implemented a collaborative review system where team members presented their ideas in development stages, making it impossible for anyone to claim sole credit for group work. We'd started anonymous feedback channels that allowed junior staff to report concerns without fear of retaliation. The changes were showing results. Our client satisfaction rates had improved, and employee turnover had dropped significantly. What surprised me most was discovering how many talented people had been flying under the radar. Nathan, 25M, a quiet graphic designer who used to get overlooked in meetings, turned out to be a brilliant strategist once he had a platform to present his ideas. Christina, 33F, who'd been stuck doing routine social media posts, revealed an incredible talent for viral marketing campaigns when given the chance to lead a project. One afternoon, I ran into Jack in the break room, the first time we'd spoken properly since everything happened. He looked tired, but somehow more genuine than I'd ever seen him. He apologized for not seeing through Madison's behavior and admitted he'd learned hard lessons about leadership. We didn't become friends, but there was a new understanding between us, a recognition that we'd both grown from the experience. The real validation came during our quarterly review meeting. Michael presented the department's performance metrics, showing a 40% increase in client retention and a 25% improvement in campaign effectiveness. He used our transformation as a case study for other departments, highlighting how transparency and genuine collaboration had turned a potentially damaging situation into an opportunity for growth. Rachel and Tom had flourished in their new roles. Rachel's promotion had given her the confidence to pitch bold new ideas, while Tom had become the go-to person for smoothing over client concerns with his straightforward, honest approach. Watching them succeed made me realize that my revenge plan had inadvertently created opportunities for everyone who deserved them. 6 months after Madison's disastrous presentation, I was heading home after another long but satisfying day when I received an unexpected text from my cousin in Boston. She'd just attended a marketing seminar where Madison was in the audience, frantically taking notes and looking decidedly less polished than in her Thompson and Associates days. I smiled, closed the message, and looked out at the Chicago skyline from my office window, reflecting on how everything had played out. I never responded to that reference request email. I figured my silence would speak volumes, and Madison would have to build her career on her own merits this time. Sometimes, I wondered if my elaborate scheme had been too much. But then I'd see Nathan confidently leading a client presentation, or Christina celebrating another successful campaign launch, and I knew that exposing Madison had led to positive changes for so many people. Olivia from HR still brings up that presentation in management training sessions, though she's careful not to mention names. It's become something of a corporate legend the day someone tried to present complete nonsense to our CEO. The story serves as a reminder about the importance of integrity and understanding your work, not just presenting it well. The most unexpected outcome was my own personal growth. The experience taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else, it's about creating something better from the ashes of a bad situation. My new role has challenged me in ways I never expected, pushing me to think beyond just marketing strategies, to consider how to build and maintain a healthy corporate culture. Yesterday, Michael stopped by my office to discuss our upcoming expansion plans. As we were wrapping up, he paused at the door and mentioned that he kept my notebook, the one with all the fake marketing concepts. He said he uses it as a reminder that creativity can be used for both destruction and construction, and it's our choice which path we take. Looking back, I realized that Madison's attempt to steal my success had inadvertently given me something far more valuable than a promotion. It had shown me my own strength, helped me discover my leadership abilities, and taught me how to fight back without losing myself in the process. The corner office and executive title were nice, but the real victory was in creating an environment where talent could thrive without fear or fakery. As I packed up my things to head home, I glanced at the framed mission statement on my wall, one I'd written myself for our department. Innovation through integrity, success through collaboration. Simple words, but they represented everything we'd learned from that bizarre chapter in our company's history. Madison might have stolen my ideas, but in doing so, she'd helped me find my voice, and that was something no one could ever take away.